If you need more water or stuff at the tables, if you can move chairs around, just let me know, or just grab it from another table. You've got your handouts there. We have an evaluation underneath the handouts at the end of the workshop. If you would do us a favor and fill out that evaluation. If you have any suggestions for future workshops, go ahead and write that on there for us. Those that have been coming know that we drive what you would like to see for our future workshops. A couple of housekeeping things. If you need to use the restroom, it's down the hall on the left. As you are leaving today, last workshop I told you about our Clock Your Preschool Coalition website that we developed that has resources for parents. If families need help with things, there's a lot of great information there. If you would like to take some of these for your classroom or for your school or your center, go ahead and take a bundle. They're in bundles of 25. The other thing I have are Bob the Bus. We're gearing up for the summer. Eventually we'll get labels on the back of where we'll be, but that's not being decided until Monday. But it does have our Facebook and our Twitter information as well as our website. So if you want to grab any of those for your families, I'll also have them at the next workshop as well. So that's for you. When you turn in your evaluations as you leave, I will have a certificate of attendance for you, and I will also have some Play-Doh as a little gift. Let's see. I think that's it for the housekeeping. You all are in for a treat. Brian Rockefeller is our presenter for tonight. He is one of the occupational therapists here in Fauquier County, and he came highly recommended from the kindergarten teachers. They said, you need to get him to come and speak to the principals. So, Brian, it is all yours.
All right, I'm Brian, and tonight you must know something about the handout. Every time you see a PowerPoint handout, there's a lot of spaces where you fill in and everything is already there. It is not that way. So right now, understand it is not that way, because all I did is cue myself a few words on each paper so that you can actually listen to what I said and make it practical. I've been an occupational therapist for 30 years. Yes, the gray hair comes today. But the thing is, I haven't worked in school systems all the time. I've worked at a psychiatric center. I've been a manager at Fauquier Hospital. I've worked at trauma centers. So I've kind of been around the block a little bit. So I like to present, and I like to have lots of people asking questions the whole time. Okay? And hopefully I'll be able to show you some things and help them make maybe a little bit more sense than they did. So I threw up some propaganda right away, and I hope you've all read it so far. Right? That way, when you think about this, you think, oh, I can do that. Right? It was supposed to be. It's kind of like throwing flyers out of a plane as you drive by. That's what that's all about. So, because actually, when Kristen asked me to do this, I said, yeah, I can do that. So, I guess that's how you try to read it. All right. So, you're getting a lot of kids, I would imagine, with a lot of interesting behaviors. Yay? Nay? Nay? And actually, my wife is also an occupational therapist, and we have a girl who's a student at JMU, and we're doing her master's thesis with her. So we're actually taking some data right now on a bunch of preschoolers in the area, trying to figure out maybe what's causing some of the stuff. So you're getting kids, and even in school, I'm finding the kids, they're just different than they were 10 years ago. And why is that? And I try to make a list of, what's causing some of the stuff. The back to sleep program, right? The back to sleep program wants you to have your infant on its back all the time, right? Because if you don't have your baby on its back all the time, they die. Okay? None of you were ever on your back as an infant. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing because there are sudden death. There was a rise in the SIDS. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. What I am saying, though, it petrifies moms. So what does mom say? Oh, I'm not putting my baby on its stomach. So by the time you see these kids, and I see these kids, they don't want to be on their stomach. Okay, and there's developmental milestones. I'm sure Lisa Arto, the occupational therapist, when she was here, talked about developmental milestones of children. We have to be on our stomach. Okay? Lack of tummy time, and that's what it's called, just being on your stomach. Lack of just leaving your baby on the carpet, playing with them on the floor. They're not getting the same sensory input that a kid that would be on their stomach would get. Okay? So we're kind of competing against that. And don't believe me, I'm not blaming moms because I get it. I mean, you don't want to be the mom that's put your baby on the stomach and the baby dies. I'm not saying that like low tone. We've seen a lot of kids with low tone. Now, if I picked probably 5 or 10 people out and I just looked, I would find that there are people in this room with low tone. What is low tone? It has nothing to do with strength, for one thing. Your body has the tone that it has. If you have kids, you work with them every day, right? You have kids that are bouncy like little kangaroos, right? They bounce all over the place. Then you have kids that don't want to move as much, right? And they're a little just a bit more sedentary, okay? A lot of times the kids that are a little bit more sedentary have a little lower tone. What is tone? Technically, it's a muscle's reaction to quick stretch. So, but we all have a certain level of tone. So if to test the tone, what I would do is, can I use it? Thank you for volunteering. I do that a lot, sorry. So what I would do is I would take I'm not going to hold your arm up like that. And don't, hold it up there. And I'm going to push back and forth. Let me move your arm. Okay. Let me move your arm. And when I pull her arm, there's not resistance. You're fine. She's fine, but it's the reaction that you would get to quick stretch. Kids that are a little bit more kangaroo-y would have a little bit more resistance. People that are a little bit more low tone would not. What does that mean? There is a wide range of tone. You hear that all the time. Oh, they've got low tone. Okay, my daughter's a music teacher. She has low tone. We used to use her as an example in these in-services. We used to bring her. Okay, kid, you get up on the wall and do a push-up. I'm using my own kid for this because she's very low tone. She's a very functional member of the society today. She teaches. She's a teacher. So it doesn't mean abnormality. It just means that you may have to work harder in certain situations. You are competing with technology. When I was younger, and as my son says, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, when I was younger, that we didn't have to compete with the technology, right? There are studies that show that if you put technology in front of a child before the age of 3, you are exponentially increasing their likelihood of having ADHD. That's why we're seeing this ramping up of ADHD. That's one of the reasons. One of the reasons. It's in all the literature now. So why is that? Because when that kid looks at technology like this, and what are they looking at? They're looking at things that are moving around all the time, right? They're not looking at things that are stationary. So their eyes, you're developing this pattern of eye movement that is dependent on movement. And then what do? We take them to school and say, can you sit in this chair? Right? How can they sit in the chair? Because this is what they're doing around the room. Because they're looking for that same level of stimulation that they're getting from the technology. Before 3 is bad. After, and it takes so much longer to recoup the time. I will stop in just a minute as soon as that pizza gets on. I promise. So, in the amount of technology that you give that child, you have to do like 3 times as much to get rid of it. 3 times as much time not in front of technology to get rid of it. So, you're competing with it, and we're not going to win. I'll tell you that right now. So, some milestones have changed. Standing, walking, they've delayed all those milestones. Now they're like 12, 13 months. I mean, 13, 14 months where they used to be like 12 months. They've delayed all those milestones. And why is that? because kids now aren't moving as much. They're sitting in front of their technology. Is it a bad thing? It's a different thing. And what they'll do is they'll shift all those milestones, and then we're just going to have a different looking society in about 10 years. Shall we stop? Okay. So I talked about the delayed milestones. I kind of talked, this is what I do, by the way. I stay on topic and get off topic all at the same time. So I'll probably answer my questions before I look up there. And then we have lack of exposure. And from the research that we're doing with a girl at JMU, it's really interesting. Because there's a direct correlation between that tummy time and one other thing. It's dad's involvement in rough play. Dads tend to throw. Dads tend to swirl the kid. Dad tends to do a whole bunch of things that mom hates, right? But that has a role in the sensory development of the child. And it's a necessary thing. So you'll also see, and I didn't put it on here, and I think it's probably on one of the next slides, is we're also competing with carriers. Why do kids have abnormal movement? Why do kids not talk as early? Why do we move these milestones? Because they're in carriers. It's called container baby syndrome. If you were here for Kara Thompson, I'm sure she hit that with a hammer hard. Because we're kind of all about it. What's container baby syndrome? That's when you put your baby in a container to do whatever it is you need to do. Okay? There are ones that swing you. There's ones that rock you. There's ones that and there's ones that let you stand. There's ones that let you whatever. When we were looking at the research, we had all of them listed, and every parent had every one checked. Why is that a big deal? Because of the way those provide the sensory input to the kid. When dad is throwing the kid around, I'll assure you it's not in a swing-like fashion. The kid falls all over like this, and then catches them, and mom goes, "Stop it!" And then dad does it again because it makes mom yell. But there's all that non-linear or non-line movement, and all these carriers are in line. Does that make sense? All right? Everything is either rocking in this direction or going in this direction, and that's not normal movement. I can do that for about 10 minutes and then go, okay, it's off. Because if I move like this, it's just not normal movement. And the thing is, what you guys can do, in fact, with little kids, is encourage normal things. So, all right. So how do we prepare a class? I go to 4 different schools here in Faulkner County, and I go in a lot of different classes in the county here. Every class is different. So if I went in your class, and in your class, and in somebody's class back there, they'd probably be completely different because of, 1, what you can tolerate as a person, and 2, your teaching style with kids, right? So I put up these pictures for a reason, especially the one on the bottom. I go to a lot of classes now, like especially kindergarten classes. When I did the presentation, I talked to them about, because they have, let's do alternate seating, because alternate seating is better for kids. And I'm like, well, it sure is, you're right. Until the kid can't handle it, and then you're making your life even harder. So, for example, the ball. It's like my favorite one to do. Would somebody like to volunteer? Anyone like to volunteer? It's just a chair activity. You will not be harmed. Come on down. Bring use your chair here. All right. Can everybody kind of see? Okay. We're going to simulate that she's on a ball. I purposely didn't bring a ball tonight because I want to show you can do this with anything you have in your room, right? So what we're doing is I'm going to have her write something. Right on that. You guys want me to write it? What you want to write on this is you did a great job. Don't feel forced. Okay, so what I want you to do is lift up your left leg and tuck your right leg onto the chair, onto the spindle of the chair. Now right. Nope, can't get it on there. Come on. Wow, these kids these days. Okay, and when she does write, it's going to maybe get a little harder when I move her. So what I'm simulating here is, oh wow, she's impaired, look. Actually, she did a really good job. Wow. So what I'm trying to show you is that if she was on a ball here, she'd be flipping all over the place, right? We have kids that can handle that. Nobody's been harmed yet. So when we're on a ball, some kids can handle that, and other kids get so lost in trying to maintain the balance, okay? So you have to watch both ends of it. Just because people say, now we can sit on a ball in class doesn't mean you should, okay? If you've got a kid with really low tone and you want to see them pick up the board 50 times, put them on a ball. If you have a kid, and there are alternates too. You can put under a ball, you can put a little ring, and a pool noodle works really well for that. Put a pool noodle underneath it so it can't roll. And that takes away all the kind of the shifting and rocking. There were kids, when I went into the kindergarten classroom, they had a table that it was about this tall, and they were all sitting crisscross around the table. Some kids can handle that. Some kids can't, and their attention is going to go way off. So then they have the regular chairs. And some kids can't handle that. My point to the teachers was this. Know why you're putting the kid in the seating system that you're putting them in. Don't just throw them there because it's the latest and greatest, okay? If a kid is inattentive, you can try a ball. All of these things are awesome, but if you put the wrong kid in it, you're going to make your life, okay, and their life hard too. All right, so I have like 3 different rooms. How to prepare a class is actually the slide here. And a lot of times when I go in, I see that class. You guys ever have that class when the kids come in? Where they're all over the place? On the left, I'm sorry, on the left. Maybe not airplanes because they're younger, but you have it when they come in, they're just all over the place. And then you have the class maybe that's pretty attentive and they all sit. And then you have, then I go into the classroom that is like this big, diverse classroom that is doing things a lot different ways. My point here is, when you look at any one of those classes, you need to know how to prepare the kids you have in that class. It's again not about how they're sitting, but who you have in that class. Okay, so it's a very difficult slide. Beginning, middle, and end. So if you're doing an activity, say you want to get your kids to sit for 10 minutes and do a little writing thing. That's the 4-year-olds, you want them to do a little bit of writing. When you look at an activity, it's not rocket science. You should have a beginning to that activity, a middle to that activity, and an end to that activity. So what's the beginning look like? The beginning would be to prepare them for the activity. For example, and maybe I'll wait until later because you don't. There are activities that I can do with the whole group, standing here and not have to expend too much energy. For example, can I have another volunteer? I'll just do one person who's not eating. Don't be shy. She volunteered earlier before you got out. Awesome. I told you. I pick volunteers all the time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is she's the whole class. Wow. Unruly, I know. Okay, scary class. Ooh, I'm terrified. So we're going to get ready to do an activity here. So, and I've got 30 kids that are sitting around and they're all answering. Okay, first thing I want you to do. Look at me. That's part of the audience. Look at me. So what I want you to do is I want you to grab the bottom of the chair under here. Grab the bottom of the chair on the other side. Good. Now in about 5 seconds, now this is for preschoolers and young kids, right? For 5 seconds, I want you to hold that chair down because gravity is going to go away. All right? So I want you to pull down into that chair as hard as you can. Ready? 1, 2, 3, pull! Pull harder! Harder, 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 harder. Okay, stop. Good. Now, the next thing I would do, and it's going to be very difficult on this chair for you, is I would have them push down off the chair, lift their bottom off the chair, or lift their bottom and their leg off the chair. Depends on the kid. Okay? Okay, next time you are going to potentially fly up in the air. Okay? So, we need to stop that. We need to stop that. What I want you to do is I want you to push your chair back. When I count to 3, I want that chair back to the wall so you don't fly away. 1, 2, 3, push it. Push it, push it, push it, push it, push it, and stop. Stop. You did a really good job stopping. Really good job. Okay, hands over your head. You can make up stuff. Hands over your head. Clasp your hands. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to pull those hands as hard as you can together. Pull them hard, 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 hard. Pull. Pull them hard. Pull, pull, pull. done, I've actually just done a couple activities that will increase her body awareness. Because a lot of times you get kids coming in class and they're like, good morning. Right? That's what they're like. So you need to do some activities to increase their awareness of their body. Thank you very much. Again, unharmed.
Are you aware of your body now, Mrs. Hall?
Can you feel your hands? Can you feel your hands from pulling out? Yep. And if you like, let me do a couple other ones that you can do with kids. You can make up a story with the kids. Okay, we're going to go down the road in the car. I want you to bounce the car. And they have to bounce themselves in the chair. All this is about is not like coming up with some regimented thing for the kid to do, but it's about having the kid be aware of where their body is in space. There's a word on one of the slides later that we'll talk about. Then we're going to talk about what the middle of an activity would look like. That's going to be your actual activity. And that's what you guys are good at, not per se what I'm good at. That would be your fine motor activity that you're going to do with the kid, whether it be coloring, cutting, clothes, fastener work, whatever you're going to do. That's your middle. Then the end, I'm assuming after this activity will be 10 or 15 minutes, then you'll do something else again. So you want to prepare them again for the next activity. There is a thing called heavy work. Has anyone heard of that? What heavy work is? Heavy work is actually where you get a child to do something like carry an item. If you have a kid that's a little off task perhaps, or needs a little bit more awareness of their body, you can have them move all the furniture to one side of the room. You can have them carry something to the office. You can have them push the tables out of the way for your next activity. It's providing input to the upper body and lower body. Okay, you can do this as simply as having them stand in front of a table and push the table. And I say silly things to the kids all day. Okay, guys, this table is going to fly up to the ceiling, and I'll put my timer on, and I'll say, oh gosh, it's going to do it in 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. You've got to hold it down and have them push into the table. And you want it so that they're not all on their feet, they're on their hands. If a child is lacking tummy time, what habit they got?
Upper body strength.
Right? So, upper body strength. So they haven't done, probably, you see a lot of kids go straight from sitting, standing, cruising, walking, and they are missing all that crawling time. The other activity that I love to do with kids is wheelbarrow walking. Hands on the floor, feet in my hands, and we walk across the room. I had kids at the beginning of the school year that I work with, and of course the kids I work with are going to have some impairment, but that can't walk 2 steps on their hands. And then by the end of I don't do this one. It's not like, boot camp. I might do it once every other time I see them or something. I don't want to be that guy. But you walk them on their hands, and you'd be surprised how quickly the upper body strength can come around for those kids. So that's another really good activity to do with kids. But you don't have to be, if you're like, I cannot lift these kids. I've got 15, I've got 20 kids in my class, and I can't wheelbarrow walk them all. You're right, you don't have to. There are scooter boards. You could put them on a scooter board and have them claw their way across the room. You could put them on, you could have them be there. They put their hands on the floor and their feet on the floor. Your knees can't touch. Okay? Knees can't touch. What I want you to do is everybody's going to get in a row. We're going to go around the room, and you're going to crawl everywhere. Got to make bear noses. Okay? All centering activities for the kid too. So if they're getting their hands involved, if they're doing that heavy work kind of stuff, they're going to have a better idea of where their body is. Now that it surprises you if you did that with some kids. What's your favorite animal? I like bunnies. Okay, then hop like a bunny around the room. Okay, all of them, and they follow. And then you rotate the person. Then you rotate them around. Okay. So my point here is that at the end, you want to re-prep them for the next activity. That's going to decrease the amount of wildness that you see if you can get them where you want them to be. If you're doing heavy work, what else does it do? It exhausts them a little bit. So even the kids that are your super kangaroos are going to slow down a little bit because you're increasing their activity. It really works. Okay. What are some activities that you can do for fine motor? I put on just a my point for doing all these activities was to show you that they can be done in more than one location. If you're doing a pegboard with a kid, do you have to do it on the table? No. You can put that pegboard on the ground. And what does that do? That puts them on their elbows. They're getting weight through their arms. Okay? You could do it over a little bolster. I have kids, when I don't have a bolster available, I put them on a chair on their stomach and have their hands on the ground and have them doing like a little pegboard that way. Okay? With them, with their stomach over the chair. Will they like it? Maybe at first not, but they'll think it's cool if you think it's cool. So, you know, they're pretty compliant with it. You can work with dressing the same way. You can have them sitting down, you can have them standing up. Put kids in different positions. All these activities can be done in different positions. So all the things that you guys probably have access to, you know, the farmhouse, the kitchen, all those kinds of things, you think they're just play, right? If they're done in the right way, it's not just play, it is actual work for kids. Occupational therapy, what is that? The occupation in occupational therapy is what you do in your life that you control. My occupation is my job. But a kid, what is their occupation? Play. And why do we have it? Why did they originally come up with, I think they should have a kitchen? Because it's things to manipulate. It's things to work with. It's things to pretend with. It's things to use the imagination with. It's not just a kitchen to them. It's real to them. So you can go in there and you can do the taste tester for the gourmet meal that they're making. You can make them crawl across the room to give it to you. We need to look at the activities as more than activities. That they're experimenting with life, really. And if we put them in the right position, they're actually getting some of those, some of that positional sense that they require. For me, what is a cut? I do this all the time in the preschool classes. Let's do some cutting. And preschool teachers, will come out with a paper with this beautiful picture on it and want the kids to cut it out. I'm like, do a 3, give a piece of paper. And we sit down, and I'm like, okay, chop it up. This is my confetti table. I'm having a parade, and you guys need to make me confetti. So I have them sit and just snip paper. Just snip paper. Because you know what? If I sit there and I tell them every time, this is how you hold this. I'm a really good OT. Back up and I look at him hold the scissors. If he cuts enough, he's going to start holding those scissors better anyway, right? So if you put him in that position by doing random cutting stuff, I teach cutting. I put a piece of paper down, put the kid in Indian style, and have him cut up. It corrects the thumb. It puts the scissors in the right position, and they love it. I love it. And then I start putting lines on the paper and say, I'm going to cut that line. All right? It doesn't need to be this high-tech thing that's, you know, this to show mom and dad that they are excelling. Okay, so just a bunch of activities. You guys can look through those later. I said that, didn't I? All the positions. All the positions. So if you do something in the same way every time, just change the position. I told you I would be doing it. Just change the position. Are we good here? Can I change?
Yes, change.
Change. Hither. Oh! Okay. We have already done the ball activity. That is, the ball activity was the chair activity. But this picture, I thought, captured really what I was trying to do. If you ask that elephant to do something, even just that an elephant can do, like drink water out of the sea or something, which they wouldn't because it's saltwater. But if you ask the elephant to take a drink of water now, even the elephant will struggle in this position, right? And we ask our kids to do things in a lot of weird positions that they struggle with because we want to vary the positioning that they're in. Some kids, it's about the number of points of support. Right now, that elephant, I can't tell if both feet are on that or not. They've cropped 1 foot away. It's only got 3. Maybe he was born that way. Is there 2 feet on the ball? Okay, so it's got 2 feet on the ball. So there's only 2 points of support, right? If it put its trunk down, it would be 3, right? Hopefully by the end of this little talk, I won't see anybody exercising the 3rd point. That would be your head on the table. That would be bad, and probably the review wouldn't be good. So, there's only 2 points of support. So how do we increase side of the sheet. Anyway, elbows on the table and have them sitting up. Okay? So you need to look at how you're providing that kid. Why does somebody put the head down? It's usually because they are looking for more support. Okay? To you it looks like they're falling asleep and they're not listening to what you're doing. A lot of times it's because they're looking for more points of support. Right now, we're in the perfect position. Look at you. See, feet on the floor, knees at a 90-degree angle. She's sitting up straight, right? We're not all like that. If you saw me in one of these seats by the end of this, I'd be okay. And there's a wide range of normal. If you look around the room at your peers, there's a wide range of how you're sitting, except now I'm standing, you're probably not sitting down. That's it. So that's what the ball activity is. Sometimes I will put an adult on a ball and ask them to do things on the ball with like one foot up in the air. Imagine yourself in that position. Imagine yourself in that position. It's pretty uncomfortable, and we do that, again, we do that to kids all the time. So make sure they have the base of support that they need. Base of support being your bottom, your feet, your elbows. Okay? Keep that up like an elephant. Okay. So, this word proprioception is a big word, but it's not. I want to like demystify some of these things that you may have heard that aren't really a big deal. Because I already told you what proprioception was. It's where your body is in space. So all the activities I did with both of you, right? By the time you're done, you probably, whether you knew it or not, you could feel your hands a little bit better. You feel your feet a little bit better. Okay? What is proprioception? It's your body's ability to perceive where you are in space. Okay. In order for you to know, in order for you not to fall out of that chair right now, you have to know that your bottom is on the chair, your back is on the back of the chair, perhaps your elbow might be up on the table. Because if you don't know those things or you don't perceive that, you will fall to the floor. Hopefully that will not happen tonight. That would be bad also. So that's all proprioception is. How do I fancy teach that? Would anyone like to be a volunteer? Could you be a volunteer? This one's easy. Okay, you face that way. Okay, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, and I'm going to take your arm, this arm. I want you to make the other arm just like this one. Put it in the same position. Very good. I'm going to move this arm, I'm going to move the other one in the same position. Put it in the same position.
On the other side?
In the same position. Okay. Let's do it again. I'm going to put it in a different position. You put the other one in the same position. Make it look just like it. Good job. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing down here. Put your other hand in the same position. Good job. I'm going to do the same thing here. Put your other hand in the same position. She knows there's receptors in her joints. Thank you very much. There's receptors in her joints that tell her where she is in space. I just proved that she had them because she could replicate it on the other side. Okay? There's another test, and that'll be the next slide. But that's all proprioception is. But think about how impactful it is. If we have a kid that's falling all the time, if we have a kid that is running into things, I used to have this girl years ago, and I swear to you this happened. She would come in the room and she'd go, oh. And she would hit every item around that room, and I'd be like, oh, we're not really aware of our body, are we? And 4 years later, she didn't do it. Literally, I'm not joking. 4 years. It probably took 4 years to get her a better awareness. However, it was because she lacked body awareness. How do you give people body awareness? Activities like I've already told you, like wheelbarrow walking, like doing those little activities that I showed you in the chair, getting people in position. Playground. The playground is the best area for proprioceptive awareness. Swinging gives you body awareness. Climbing gives you body awareness. Okay? And unfortunately, I think our society is going away from some of the things that I think are really great about playgrounds. We think math is more important, but actually, if the kid knows where their body is in space, the math comes along easier. So proprioception. Where you are in space, you all have it. I saw you walking. Okay. Vestibular. Okay. All right, you're hearing like all the sensory stuff, right? Yeah. Yeah, I would be so busy. My sensory system is a So vestibular, where does that start? It's your inner ear. It's your balance system. It's your awareness. Why does it matter? Because it's all literature says that vestibular input, your spinning, your swinging, your sit and spins, your kids that go out on the playground and go, woo. I had all of those inner ear stuff that those kids, and you have those kids, and then you have kids that go, I'm going to stand over here. That would have been me as a kid, probably. But all that vestibular input, that swinging, not only gives them positional awareness, movement awareness, but it also gives them sensory development. It helps with communication. Is one of the major things that all that swinging and stuff does. If you had a child that's a little nonverbal, swing is a great way to increase their because it works on your tone. It works on everything. If you've ever been to the swing, and I purposely go on a swing about once a year. This is because I don't do well on a swing, because my sensory system, being as geriatric as it is, my inner ear, like if I spin myself, if I go on that machine, you know, the one that goes around and around and around, for about 2 days I'd be going. I probably, that's no lie. So I do it once a year to remember that these kids are pretty exceptional and they can sit there and just fly and jump and do all that stuff off. So very important to sensory development is your vestibular system. It starts, it's all the semicircular canals in the ear is where that all comes from. All right. The worst slide. Okay, the worst slide. Because I couldn't really find a slide that showed you what kinesthesia was. Another big fancy term, a lot like proprioception. One more volunteer. I can use you again. Thank you for volunteering. You know why I'm going to use you again? Because it's the same test. All right, face that, we're going to do the same thing. Only this time I'm not looking at where her arm is in space. So you close your eyes, put your arm in the same. Put your arm in the same direction. Every time I move this side, I want you to move that side the same way. Okay?
Got it.
So if I go out and think about it. Got it. Okay. So notice that she moves in the same rate. I have done this with people before. If they have poor kinesthetic awareness or movement, kinesthesia. Yeah, wow, way to volunteer. Volunteers. So kinesthesia is movement. That's all it is. All right? And how do we get a movement awareness? We move. Simple as that. You know, it's not rocket science. Get the kids to move. If you've got a kid that is really reluctant on the swing, you might do stuff like a pre-swing activity. What would that look like? Maybe a sit and spin, maybe one of the little cars, take them around and do different directions in the cars. You know, back and forth, back and forth. I know Central, I really like that track that they put in this year. That's pretty cool because you could do a lot of things with the sensory system on that track. Okay, you could have them on the car, stop, go, you know, and have them directed around there. They probably think that's pretty cool. So that's just movement. That's all it is. The other one is just where you are in space. Okay, keep that up like a fire horse. All right. All right. This slide's not as bad. I like my colorful version. Sorry about the non-color. Yeah. I don't know. We're the same office.
Everybody has to be a critic.
Or a crayon, one or the other.
So, if you look at the picture, this picture, not yours, because yours doesn't have colors. I like this picture so much because it shows all the cogs being different colors, right? So, we're all, like, mine would probably be a lot more, I don't know. It would be different color, probably. And then yours would be a different color, yours would be a different color, yours would be a different color. All our cogs would be a different color, right? So, we all learn in different ways, right? The thing that we're providing with kids now, we're not providing with kids, is a substitute learner technology. So if we're training our brain to learn in a different way, when we look at a screen, your visual system's different, your auditory system's different, you're not speaking as much, and we wonder why we have kids. that aren't as interactive because they're interactive with this. It's a societal thing, and I'm not criticizing technology. You notice I just pulled the phone out of my pocket, and it's on. I mean, oh, my message. Hold on. Go. But that's what kids are experiencing. You see kids walking down the road. I just saw a statistic today that was like, they were all worried that pedestrian accidents were up. Well, duh. If you walk like this down the road into traffic, you're going to get hit. I wonder why pedestrian traffic is up. I mean, pedestrian accidents are up. So, technology trains our brain in a different way. How does it do that? It makes us visually scan differently, right? We are in tune to, and I hope I can get this across. We are in tune to something very close from us, right? If you sit on the beach or you sit in the woods and you listen, where does all the input come from? Does it come from right here in front of you? Or do you hear like a bird singing over there and a stick dropping over there and like a wild dog over here? And you have to discern all those things, right? Well, we're training everybody that, no, we don't want to look outward because everything's inward. Okay? And the visual tracking is the same way. I would dare say that probably nearsightedness has increased in this country because we're all focused here, we're not focused out there. Okay? So what can we do about that? Go back a couple slides and do some of those activities, including things like Play-Doh. Have them experience things in a different way. Do those activities that you go outside and you listen. And you see if they can hear things from afar, hear things close up. And it's interesting when you go in a classroom and you say to a kid, and it's like say you got 20-some kids in the class, Johnny, Johnny, and you're calling from across the room, right? And Johnny's going. Now, if you could have him on his iPod, and you come on the iPod and say, Johnny, you go. He'd look right up, right? Think about that when you are calling a kid. That's not how they've been trained. So it's almost like we need to retrain that. Make sense? It's real when you think about it. And again, I sound like this 90-year-old guy that's got this thing out for technology, which I do not. I'm also part of the assistive technology team where I provide technology to kids that require to access the curriculum. I think technology is awesome, but there's a time and a place for everything. And when you're looking at a 2-year-old that's sitting in the store like this, and the parents yell at them because they're not listening to them, I think to myself, well, you've created that problem because you haven't trained them to attend to you. So you're dealing, that's one of those battles on that first slide, remember, or second slide. I said, you are battling technology. That's how you're battling technology. When you call a kid and you get upset because they're not answering you, it may not be defiance at all. It may be that they just don't hear you. Consider that because I bet you that's a little different than you've been thinking. They may not even hear you. So what do you do in that situation? I have kids that I have teachers using like colors. And you tell the kid, every time I hold up red, I want them to look at it. And you have them look to get attention. Because they may not be tuned into the auditory sense whatsoever. So just food for thought, because I know you have kids like that. I had one today. And I'm like, oh. And I'm not blaming mom and dad because really, this is what I've seen. Okay, this is going to be my computer. And I've got to read my emails and go to Facebook because there are vital things that are happening on Instagram and Twitter. And my kid is in the car seat right here. Oh, you're so cute. And they're Twittering. So that kid is not getting any sensory input when you're doing that. Or they're cooking when you're looking at the study. And this is going to run bashing thing because I could do the same thing with a dad activity. If they're in the carrier and you're cooking dinner, you're looking at the kid, the better position would be to cook dinner with kid. I know it's hard, but look at all the things you're doing with the kid when you're cooking the dinner. The kid is actually hearing the sounds, doing the stuff, feeling the motion, okay? But if they're sitting in that seat, what are they doing? This. Because the world is this small. Our job is to make that world bigger for these kids. And I think even when they get to preschool, That's what we've got to do, is make the world bigger. Make them know that they're a part of it. So I'll get off my soapbox because I'm really not trying to be that guy. And I'm certainly not that guy because he's younger than me. Okay, so what can we do? There's a thing I love to talk about. It's called neurolinguistics. All right. So when you say to little John, neurolinguistics is nothing more than what you say to somebody to get them to do what you want. So, I have this. I'm a 3-year-old and I just picked this up. So what do you say to the 3-year-old? This is a piece of very rare glass, okay? And the child's got it going across the room, waving it. What do you say to the kid? Don't drop it, right? So what did you just told the kid to do?
Drop it.
Drop it! Oh, you said drop it? Great. What did you really want to tell the kid? Put it on the table. Right? That is all neurolinguistics. So every time, sit down, sit. Johnny, if I've told you once, I've told you twice, you can't do that. You've got, Johnny, get over here. No, go over there. You know where you should be. Right? You know what you should be doing right now, and I need you to do that. And Johnny's going, one, he didn't hear you because he's halfway across the room, and he's like, this kid. And second, he's like, oh, because you haven't really been clear what you're supposed to do with me, Johnny. Just because you told Johnny that a day ago doesn't mean Johnny has any awareness of what he's supposed to do. So what you need to say to Johnny is, Johnny, sit in this chair, please. Is it going to work? Probably not. I'm going to be honest, probably not the first time, probably not the second time. But if you keep telling the kid what you actually want him to do rather than what you don't want him to do, I told you not to play with those blocks. Oh, play with blocks? Okay. I'll go play with blocks. I told you to get out of the kitchen. Come on. The whole group is over here at the table over here. Come on, you're not over there. You're in the kitchen. Oh, I'm in the kitchen. That's what he hears. So you have to tell the kid what you actually want them to hear. That's all neurolinguistics. Okay? Makes sense, right? We don't think about it, but it makes sense because we get upset with what the kid does or what he doesn't do. I said he again. It's not fair. That's usually boys. Okay.
He's used to the problem.
Huh?
I said he is used to the problem.
Usually. My wife would agree. Okay. And you know my wife, she would agree with you. All right, so, bunch of words sitting all down here. What is your real, your job with the kids? What is your goal at work? Do you want to have kids be more cooperative with you? Do you want to have those kids have a good time at school? If that's your goal, perhaps we need to refocus some of the things, some of the motor stuff that we do to achieve that goal. Okay? Back to that slide where I said beginning, middle, and end. I know it looks stupid. It wasn't a great goal. It wasn't a great slide. I get that. Beginning, middle, and end. Because it didn't have to be, right? It's pretty big. If you can think about, okay, today we're going to do this craft. I'm going to make a penguin. And I'm going to take a penguin picture, and I'm going to have them glue, then I'm going to have them rub their hands on it, I'm going to have them put different colored paper on that penguin. Okay, what can I do to get them to sit down and do this activity with me? Maybe I'll do a couple of those activities that we did, the practice ones that we did when we had you guys, when I had you captive in the chair. And then maybe you'll do the activity, and at the end, wait, it's almost lunchtime. Man, they're crazy at lunch. So what am I going to do? I'm going to have them bear walk around the room. I'm going to have them individually. If you're wearing the color green, I want you to bear walk to your seat. So what are you doing? You're working on that skill that we said that Johnny didn't have, listening across the room. Okay, Johnny, I want, if you're wearing the color green, and then all his friends are going to go, Johnny, you're wearing green. And Johnny's going to go, oh, I'm wearing green. Oh, I should go. And then he'll do it. So you're using neurolinguistics, you're using his peer pressure, which is not necessarily a bad thing because they're just telling him we're green. They're not picking on him. And you're getting him to do the things you want him to do. And then you transition him to lunch, and maybe then he can sit a little bit because I recognize that I had green. I'm going to go sit down now. That kid that never can get it right because we all have it. I worked with him today. So, the preparation, heavy work. Did that kind of sense to you what the heavy work was? All right, I have kids in school that have a lot of attentional issues, so I will give them a ream of paper and say, hey, could you take that to the office for me? And they will walk to the office. I have a lot of kids that can't keep their hands to themselves in the hallway. Teacher's like, I don't know what to do. He's got his hands all over Sarah and Johnny, and he won't stop. And I'm like, okay, give him something to carry. I have kids carrying book bags. I have kids carrying books. I have them take things to the library. I have them carry things. There's always that special bag that has like the, I don't know, snake bite repellent and all of that really important stuff that you have to carry to the playground, right? So I have them take that. That's the kid that carries that. Put all the balls in a bucket and have him carry the bucket out to the playground. That kid, he's got 2 hands on that. He's going to be so proud to be the guy holding the bucket. If he's got hands on the bucket, then he's not got his hands on Sarah and Johnny. Why does he have his hands on Sarah and Johnny? Because he wants to be their friend, but maybe he can't communicate that. Or maybe he's just picking on them. I don't know. Don't know Sarah or Johnny. Okay, so you got to have goals on what you want to achieve and what kind of situation you want those kids to be in. Okay, you can be confrontational and adversarial. You can be as pleasant and wonderful and still not get what you want to have done if you don't have a goal. And if you don't say to yourself, this is how I'm going to achieve that. On the bottom, and you know what? I realized when I made this slide, I couldn't get it any closer to the guy. Use what you have. If you have the kitchen, if you have pegboards, it doesn't matter the equipment. It's what you do with the equipment that you have. All right? It doesn't have to be state-of-the-art. I hate that, actually. I don't need the biggest, the greatest, the best. I have a thing of Legos, right? And when I do fine motor preparation, like I'm going to work on writing with a kid. Say I got a 2nd grade, I'm going to work on writing with them. I pull out the Lego thing, and it's like I'm a snake charmer. You know, I go like this. I don't care whether the kid likes Legos or not. When I pull out that box, I'm telling you, I can find something that that kid's thinking about that's in that Lego box. Today, I pull it out, right? And I got this 1st grader, and I just started working with him, and he does not like writing. I mean, he hates it. So I'm doing a bunch of preparatory activities to show him that when he comes to see Mr. Rockefeller, it's not going to be hateful. And he's going to have some success. So I pull out the Legos thing. I said, do you play with Legos? No. I said, you don't? What do you like? He goes, I like spaceships. I said, oh, but there's a spaceship in here. He looks at it, and he looks at me like I have 3 heads, like most people do. And I put together something. I said, that's my spaceship. Can you make yours? And then he makes a spaceship. Legos become the greatest thing in the world. And why did I do it? I did it to get his fine motor skills a little bit better. He didn't even have the strength to put them together. I had to help him do that. Okay? Then I move on to another activity. It might be like a putty activity, like Theraputty or Play-Doh. I hide things in the Play-Doh, and I'll say to the kid, I need you to pinch those out. There's 8 things in there. So we're working on math. We're working on things. Just pull those things out of there. And if you watch these kids, some public kids will really, really struggle with that activity. I need you to roll that into a snake. I need you to pinch that. I need you to pinch that snake. We're working on all the dexterity skills. Then, I work on writing with this kid. And by that time, he's realized that, wait a second, he's got Legos, he's got Play-Doh, this guy's not all bad. And then we sit down and I do like a pretty organized handwriting program with him. And I started with him like a week or 2 ago. And this guy's the exception. I will admit he's the exception, because sometimes it takes a while for kids to get with confidence. I went into his special ed classroom, and I was just sitting there, he goes, Mr. Reichman, look at this. Look at this. And he is like proud as a punch. And the teacher goes, attitude has changed. He doesn't fight on writing. And I think it's just because we had fun doing it. You know, we had fun doing it, and I wasn't like killing him on that it wasn't perfect. Having said that, what part of writing is more important for a 3-year-old? What part of writing do you think you should do? What part of writing is really developmental?
The correct?
All the stuff that I've already talked about. It was a trick question. All the stuff I've already talked about is more important than putting a pencil in that kid's hand. Because if you don't have body awareness, if you don't have movement sense, if you don't have strength, you're not going to have success with a pencil. Okay, having said that, you have pressure to have these kids write. So you have pressure to have these kids have skills that are probably pre-academic is what I sense. Even kindergarten, I go, wait a minute. I would fail kindergarten if I had to do kindergarten over again. I would be out. They'd probably kick me right out. But what you're seeing in kindergarten now is this. You're seeing the grips like this. Why do they grip like this? Do you know? Because it's developmentally appropriate for a new writer. So your hand has two sides. No, it's not like a Star Trek thing. It has two sides, right? It has two sides. This side of your hand with your fourth and fifth digits is grip. I'm going to prove that. New volunteer. Thank you for volunteering. Either one. All right. So I want you to pinch this pencil. I'm going to pull it out of your hand. Don't let me pull it out of your hand. Whatever you do. All right. Do you see how she gripped it? Okay. Now I want you to do the same thing, but you can't use these two fingers. She's on to me. Oh no. Straighten your fingers out. Come on. I can't do it. I can pull it away pretty easily. It's because these three fingers are for dexterity. Okay? And these three fingers are strength. If you have a kid who doesn't have the strength, they are going to use the strength in those two last fingers to stabilize the pencil. Does that make sense? All right. So if you see a kid like this, what should you do? I'll give you a hint. Yeah. Stuff like... You should do fine motor stuff. You should do pegboards. You should do this kind of stuff. You should have them bear crawling. All the stuff we talked about before will help this without touching a pencil. Okay? The next thing that you will see is this. It's called a four-finger grip. Right? You see this. It's developmentally appropriate. You don't like it, but it's developmentally appropriate. Okay? It goes from this to this because we're using these still to stabilize, but now we've gotten these two fingers in a writing position. Okay? So that's the next step. Then we go to this. Okay? There's a bunch of pencil grips out there. There are people that say, you should use the big grip. You should use the central grip. You should use this fancy grip. Really, you should look at the kid and find out what the kid needs to get in this position after they've kind of been through here. It's just like crawling and walking. You don't always go from here to here to here. You just need to know that that exists because that's how kids are going to typically develop. If I have a kid, and I do have one, that loves to hold it like this. Why does he hold it like this? Because he can stabilize it with his two last fingers, right? He holds it like this. So how do I counteract that? I go up to him and I say, okay, we're going to write. Can I see your hand? Right hand? Left hand? She's right hand. Okay, so I put it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the pencil here, pinch it. So what does that do? It puts it in a position where the kid's actually going to do it. Now, then they're going to frustrate you. Right? They're going to go like this. They're going to look at it and they're going to go like this. Right? But if you keep introducing it the same way, I will assure you, over time, that kid is going to change the way they do it. Okay? Don't get frustrated. Know that it's developmentally appropriate for you to have to correct that, especially if they don't have a lot of experience. How can you improve their ability to use, what's a great activity to improve the ability to use a crayon, pencil, pen? I'll give you a big hint. Legos would be awesome, or drawing a picture and then coloring it in. The pictures that I would say these kids would draw, I'm going to color in that circle. Don't give them the big, because what we do is we give them these beautiful pictures. I compliment you because I don't know where you get all these wonderful pictures online, but some of them are spectacular. But when you have a new writer and a new learner, if you have one or two colors, if you can get them, okay, I'm going to do two circles. I want this circle red and this circle blue. They're not going to care that it's a circle. Then you can take the circle and make it into something really cool that is like, whatever you're going to do with it as a teacher. But really, you want them to see, the first thing they see a paper, and maybe I should have brought a picture on a piece of paper. But when you see a picture, or like a coloring picture, there's all that detail. They don't see it. All they see is the picture. So they go like this. You told them to color the picture, right? They color the picture. They don't see all the detail on the picture. So you have to help them see the detail on the picture. The way you do that is you make simpler pictures. Okay, you break the picture down. Or you say to them, if you want to use the really cool picture that you've got, because I I do compliment you. You have some really awesome pictures as teachers. That say, I want you to color one thing. And you circle it with a highlighter. Color that in blue. Don't use the whole picture. It doesn't matter. The whole picture does not matter to them. If you're trying to refine a skill, that's what I would do. Okay, so we kind of get this, and that you're going to be fixing it a lot. I bet you today, when I worked with the one kid I worked with, that I fixed it 15 times. I'll admit I didn't like it, but I did it because I knew why it was happening. You know what I mean? And when the kid was upset about it, it didn't make it easier either. So I'm not coming from a fanciful land. I work with the same kids that you guys do. You know, they're wonderful kids, but they need some help. Okay, let me look again to organize myself. Oh yeah, organize. You want to be really organized so that the activity that you do choose with that kid is going to be successful. I have, every week I do a group with a speech pathologist, and it's communication and it's fine motor. And every third week we probably flop pretty good. You know what I mean? It didn't turn out the way we want. Doesn't matter. We try to organize them all the same way, with the beginning, a middle, and an end. Sometimes the end comes a lot earlier when they don't understand what you're trying to say. Don't stop is what I'm trying to say with that. Even when you organize yourself, you're going to blow out, because everybody does. Just keep trying different things. Okay, positioning. I didn't really hit positioning really well. For years, I told people that if a kid crisscrossed in that chair, like crisscross applesauce in the chair, and then they were writing, that was a bad position to be writing, and I was wrong. Because I don't think it is. Why did the person crisscross? Why do you think they crisscross applesauce in that chair? Any ideas? To get more base of support. Okay? By tangling your legs like a pretzel, it puts you in a position that you really can't move that well, right? Don't ask me to do it because I don't even think I can get in that position. So, but the kids can. So that's not a horrible position to have a kid in. What's another good writing position for a preschooler? Huh? On the floor? Where else is a nice one that we don't like to have because they take up a lot of room? An easel. An easel. A whiteboard. An easel. Why is that? Because this is what you see a lot. I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see me or not. This is how we start to write. Our hand is not on the paper. It was interesting because that's the first thing you tried to do, wasn't it? Was to get your hand down on that paper, right? Because that gives you stability. Perfect, really, because that's what I need to show you. This is because they don't have enough stability. But look what happens if you put it up on the wall. The hand goes down automatically. Okay? There are slant boards that work wonderfully. There are all sorts of things that work great. If you put them on the floor, on their stomach, you'll get a similar result. Okay? The position for writing is not necessarily in a chair. If you have a kid that's really struggling, I would try different positions with them. They may like it. Keep in mind, it might be very exhausting to be on your stomach. And you might get, I have one kid, and I couldn't get him on his stomach. I physically couldn't achieve that position with his child because he didn't have enough extension. He could not lift his arms over his head. Very weak, very slight young man. Wonderful kid. It took me 3 weeks to get him in a prone position. And finally, I've had to compromise with a bolster. A bolster is a pillow. A bolster is anything that props their chest up a little bit. I didn't think to myself, if I put this kid in prone, and he's been in this position all his life, he can't breathe when I open him up, because it's going to tighten down the chest. So he was sitting there. He said to me, Mr. Rockefeller, can I sit in the chair now? He's very high level communication, but very low level physical, right? So then I thought to myself, what? It was just the weirdest thing to have a preschooler ask me that. Never had a preschooler ask me that. That's what I'm looking at. You know, I'm looking for any kind of symptoms of not breathing. You know, we talk. So I was like, oh, yeah, you can sit in the chair. I did not let him. And then the next week, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this. The poor kid can't maintain it. Literally 5 seconds later, his head's on the floor. Why was his head on the floor? We talked about this earlier. Base of support. He was using his head as a base of support so that he didn't have to activate his trunk. Right? The trunk muscles could relax for a second. Right? So when that kid puts her head down on your desk, it may be fatigue because they're not used to it. Try another position. I have kids cutting, like I said, cutting on the floor in Indian style. I've had them lay on the back and cut. They love it. They think it's funny. They think it's fun to do it on their back. But it also gives them correct orientation over the scissors. So think of positions that you can put the kid in. My example of writing is the easel or the floor. Don't normally like to let kids lay on the desk because that just sets a bad precedent. But it wouldn't be horrible, really, if I had the right teacher. The right teacher was okay. But with a lot of kids, that's just not going to be okay. I realize that. So your job a lot of times is like this. Right? I'm sorry that came out so blurry because I love that. It's like herding cats, right? Yeah. Herding wild cats. Because you're trying to do it, you're like thinking to yourself, okay, yeah, Mr. Mockler came in last night and he talked about great things, but he doesn't have 26 kids at once. What I've tried to talk to you about tonight is how to do that with multiple kids in the room. All right, the strategies that I've given you will work for multiple kids. You can have kids doing things like bear crawling, like bunny hopping in an organized manner, working on colors, working on math. They'll think it's great and they will listen. Okay? So it's not always like herding cats, but it is like herding cats, and I know that you do that. So don't think again that it's pie in the sky for me because it's just not. I mean, I'm working with the same kind of kids. All right. So we talked about why kids may not follow verbal directions. There's a lot of other reasons kids don't follow verbal directions. There's behavior, right? That's the first thing that comes to your mind, is behavior. Do we know they're hearing really when they're really yelling? Yeah, I have several kids that I didn't realize couldn't hear a lick until they finally got to the appointment and realized that they can't hear the right ear or something. You know? So we can't assume that kids have the same ability to hear as other people would. Ability to follow directions also has to do with your home environment. It has to do, it's environmental. And I say that with great respect because you don't know what these kids are exposed to. You don't know what these kids have to go through on a daily basis, good or bad. All right? Parents may do too much for them. And that is a loving, wonderful parent might be doing too much for the kid, and they don't have to follow directions. So I'm not saying that it's all about people not treating kids well. It might be that the people treat the kids really well. You know, we don't think about those parents, but that happens a lot. You know, Johnny just doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. I've had parents tell me, he doesn't have to do that at home. Do that for him. I'm like, oh, well, that's going to be a problem when Johnny gets older. When he hits middle school and he's not doing that, I said, we need to change some things probably sooner than you're volunteering. No, I'm joking. So think about what you want, what direction you want them to follow, and what they might be experiencing when you ask them to do that. Think of my faraway situation where they might not even do it. Okay? A good way to do that would be just to go up and say, "Did you hear me?" In a nice way. You know, not, "Did you hear me?" Maybe it is. I don't know. Okay. So we did things like pushing into the chair. Again, that's for upper body strengthening, right? I touched upon that. It's called isometric activities. You don't have to push things to move them. Kids love to push things to move them. I like to have them push things and not move them, right? Because when you push things to move them, it just creates chaos. So I want to create organization. So isometric activities are things like pushing into the table, pushing against something, pushing against the wall. Again, I make up stories. I'm just trying to remind you of the stories. Like, I'll go up the wall. Everybody, get to the wall, quick! You run to the wall. Put 2 hands on the wall. The wall is going to fall if you don't hold it up in the next 10 seconds. Push harder! And the kids just love it, all right? I haven't had a wall fall yet. Okay. think of the one that you've always done. Think of the one that maybe you could do. And sometimes it's just kind of dumb luck that it works, really. I love games Simon Says. I don't think we played enough, only I have my own versions. Mr. Brian Says. Kids love to play Mr. Brian Says. And you don't have to have a winner or a loser, but you have to have kids follow directions. Mr. Brian says, if you have blue on, stand up. So you're working on multi-step directions. Mr. Brian says, sit down, Mr. Brian. And then you can eliminate kids, put them in a different area. I'm not, and this is not an OT thing, or really, I'm not a timeout guy, I'm an audience guy. All right, I have a group, we do every week, and I'm like, oh, are you having trouble? Do you need to be part of the audience for a few minutes? Do you need to see what we're doing? Rather than being in timeout, I have a couple chairs usually, and I'll be, time to go in the audience. Watch for a couple minutes. I don't excuse them from the activity, I just put them in the audience. I may ask the audience questions. You're not out of the activity, but then they don't think it's not a trouble thing. It's it's the Neurolinguistics again. He wants me to pay attention. So he's putting me over in the audience. That's all how you explain it. Okay. Are you organizing or creating habit? Think about some of the activities that you do and how you do them. I do this to myself all the time. Sometimes I create habit. Not usually on purpose. Sometimes on purpose. You can't be in control all of the time, right? So sometimes I let kids have a little habit, and then I bring them back. Because like we said, everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So if your middle is habit, then you just have to have an exercise to bring them back in control, right? And that can be any one of the activities that we've talked about. All right. A lot of times, the kid that I have, little Johnny, who doesn't listen or doesn't pay attention, is my helper. Love the helper. Because a lot of times, and I used to do this when I was at, I've done this for years at different schools. But one thing I like to do is I like to take an older kid who is never given the opportunity to be in charge of something, and take them into a younger kid's class and make them run a group. And I'm talking about kids that might have intellectual disability, autism. I like to take them and empower them and give them, because what does that do? If I put you up here and I have you share something that is your life experience, which I could probably do with each and every one of you in this class, and you can tell me, well, this situation went well or it didn't, you would feel better about yourself. So you've got a kid that may be a huge pain in a region that's not appropriate to say right now, and you could empower him and give him self-esteem, and he may be less that way because he's like, you know, Mr. Ryan gave me charge. I carried a favor to the office today. And that's a big deal, right? I turned the light switch on. That's what that's all about. Let's see, I think that was my last slide. Do you guys have situations that you can think of that you're having trouble with that I could maybe give you some input to? Yeah.
We had a child the other day that was constantly having their hand touching as they were writing. What is that?
It's probably a midline issue. Okay. The question was, she has a child that is doing this, that are touching this hand while they write with this hand. We've probably all seen it. Okay, in order for you to determine your dominance, the hand that you're going to write on, you have to establish a midline, really. Okay? You have to be able to cross that midline. Right? And that's developmental stuff. You'll see kids that switch all the time, and that's because they haven't developed that yet. That's pretty typical. Right. So how do you tell what somebody's dominance is? You know? Let me give you some quick tests, and this is really scientific. You can tell I'm a really scientific guy. All right, what I want you to do is look through my telescope. Just look through my telescope. Oh, that's pretty good. Wait a second, did you see anything? Here, look through my telescope again. No, you can take it. Take it again. Look through my telescope. Look through my telescope. All right, why is it looking there? That's really. Are you? Okay. Undifferentiated hemispheres. Corpus It's just, okay, here's why I did this. There's a 70% correlation between your eye dominance and your hand dominance. There is a 70% correlation between your foot dominance and your hand dominance. There's probably more of a correlation between the hand that you feed yourself and your hand dominance. So if you feed yourself, because feeding is something that you have to do. So if you look at an activity like that, they're going to choose the hand that they probably are more dominant. Then you look at the parent's dominance. So if you really want to know, because you inherit your dominance, some of your dominance from your parents. So if you really want to know which hand that kid is, I would look at his eye dominance. I would kick ball with him, see what foot he kicked the ball with. I would watch him at lunchtime. I would talk to mom and dad and say, what handed are you? And you'll get a better idea. Now, what hand do you write with?
All right.
Okay. What hand do you feed yourself with?
My left.
Okay.
I can paint with both hands.
So you can paint with both hands. Okay. So what else can you do both hands?
A lot. I
Okay.
use the 10 bar and I did everything.
Both hands. Okay. That is pretty rare, really. I'm kind of the same way. It's fairly rare because, generally speaking, you're probably more rare than you're more rare. And here's the reason why. Because when you were in school, you probably got told to be a dominance.
No, my mother was. My mother was a left-handed.
She was left-handed?
And they tried to make her right.
They tried to make it right. And they stopped doing that when, over the years, they have stopped forcing kids for dominance. The thing is, at some point, you have to choose what to do. I'm the same way. I mean, I bat left-handed. I can write either hand. I can write backwards with one hand. It's basically, truly, it's an undifferentiated hemisphere, which is going to, I feel pretty lucky because when I have a stroke when I'm older, I'm going to do okay with the other hand. Please, I'm not going to have a stroke tonight. But are you artistic? Are you artistic? Are you artistic? Okay. So, but generally speaking, and you heard what I said, right? It was a 70% correlation. It's not 100%. So you don't put this in front of some kid's eye. My favorite, though, is this. You will see it. If you've got 3 kids that are doing that, I'll guarantee you see one. It's only 70%. There are going to be outliers, like myself, yourself. It doesn't make us bad people. It just makes, there's going to be outliers in everything. There is such a wide range of normal. There's such a wide range of normal. Just keep that in mind. But if you're looking for an answer to those kids, it gives you more information. And you don't want to take it for one sample size, one sample. You want to do this over weeks of watching the kid, not just one time. I go into the classroom, the teacher will be kind of stumped, and I'm like, okay, we're going to get to work here, but you need to do this for me over a next week period, and I'll come back and talk about it. And usually, and it's pretty good about it. Sometimes you have to determine it. Sometimes I'm like, I really want to know that I made the wrong choice here. You know, because I could be all right. All right. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, so is it just a developmental process?
Well, you don't see it a lot, though. You don't see that. That's kind of an overflow situation where a kid's actually not confident where this hand is. I would be doing a lot of position activities with him so he knew where his body was in space. Because this is giving more input to this onto where his hand is in space, right? So this is the kid you want to wheelbarrow walk. This is the kid that you want to bear crawl with. And that's the kid I would look at dominance because it's probably the guy that's probably in the middle. So, any other questions about kids or anything like that you guys are having trouble with? You said you had 3 kids like that.
Yeah, 3.
3 in our class.
Yeah.
How old are they?
And so they have the
They're,
pattern.
3 or 4.
So I put it like they'd be painting and the palette be on this side and they'd be reaching over. I said, okay, I'll put your palette over here so you can reach. And then they switch the brush and go and
You know, across the middle. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
We were just talking about this.
Because what I would assume that they would do is they'd be going, when you move the palette, they'd go. And then
yeah, they
start
could
off.
put the brush in the other hand
Yeah.
and you reach over here, you know.
Yeah, you can set up activities. If you have a kid that you don't think is crossing midline, a kid that is doing this when it's over here and then reaching with this hand over there, the thing I like to do is make everything bigger. If you're going to do a letter, make the letter on a piece of paper huge that you do with them so it's crossing midline. Or put like 4 round dots on paper and put colors on it. Touch red, and then you can actually hold one hand so that they have to touch red with the opposite hand that they use. Make it bigger, because gross motor stuff will help more with integrating that right level. So that's what I'm normally do with that.
Okay, I teach fours, or pre-K. I noticed that I've been doing this for 20 years. I've noticed over the years, like this year, I'm having a heck of a time for them to even write, period. I mean,
Back up because they don't have the foundation skills. They don't have all of the stuff that we talked about. So you just want to back up. I mean, I would be doing a lot of things that were a lot more gross motor. Again, the bear crawling, the wheelbarrow walking, the kitchen activities. I'd be doing a lot more of that stuff because that stuff's going to help with their long-term health and right, and their fours, right?
Yeah, 4, 5, 7.
And you got to look at what experience they have too. So I would back up and look at them again. Look at the kids again and say, do they have some of these skills to do this? Watch them do some of those activities like bear crawling, bunny hopping. Watch them on the playground. See if they actually have those skills. I would guess that they need some work. Look at their strength. Is their strength kind of up to par for where you would think it should be? Can they crawl? Can they do all that stuff? That's what I'd back up. Exactly. Have fun. That's what play is about.
So if you see your class crawling down the hall, you should buy our runner.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
We have a student who were chronologically things that we noticed.
Yeah.
Things like that. So, I think about
I don't know what their access to.
Well, I mean, you can always do a child by referral at any time. There has to be an impact, you know, so you could always do a screening at the school. The parent would call the preschool coordinator.
Hey guys,
What's that?
hold on one second.
No, actually, okay. So the question was, when do we make a referral? You can make a referral at any time. So if you're unsure, you could always suggest to the parent that they reach out to the school. Lindsay Payne is the one that you would call. The number is 540-422-7144. Or you can just call the main number and they'll connect. And then what Lindsay will do is she will set up what they call a screening at the child's base school. And they'll do a developmental assessment. They look at all the different areas, fine motor and gross motor being two of the areas that they look at. They also look at cognitive, speech and language, and I always forget one. Fine motor, gross motor, cognitive, speech and language.
Is there
There is, and it's going to come to you as soon as this workshop ends. That's usually how it goes. Anyway, there's 5 areas that they look at, and they'll make a recommendation to the family as to what the next step would be from there. So that's always an option.
And that starts as early as age 3.
We can screen if they are 2 by September 30th. I would not recommend referring a 2-year-old for that type of skill. I don't know about you. I mean, usually you don't see it until...
You have to look at the impact that it's having.
Right.
You really need to look at the impact that it's having, can they access?
And the experiences too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all going to factor in. So if this child's 3 and just came to you and they've had no experiences, it's better off to collect that data over time. And then if you don't see progress, really what we're looking for is there a standstill? Are they not making progress? If they're steadily making progress, it's just not at the same rate as someone else in the class.
And really, when you're looking at fine motor, gross motor communication, it is not a linear progression. A lot of times, and I'll use, I was joking about boys here earlier, but boys, a lot of times are motor ready, but communication stays. And that's because because sometimes we're focused on one area. Like if you have a kid that's doing all puzzles and all this, and their fine motor looks awesome, but they can't do the other gross motor skills. They don't happen concurrently all the time. It's not linear. So you might see one that's excelling in fine motor, horrible in gross motor, and then all of a sudden they start doing gross motor stuff and they're okay. It's about having the experience that they have with it too. And I would guess some of your kids don't have a lot of experience with coloring and that sort of thing.
They don't like to color anything. A lot of them almost don't like.
Because they're not probably ready.
Yes, that's so.
Yeah.
One of my worst years. So
Yeah. Right. So maybe change what you're calling too.
I was going to say, I'm checking our website because I know Lisa gave us fine motor things, but I'm not sure if there's gross motor things. But we can.
Kara probably.
I didn't ask her. It just dawned on me as we were talking. So we can get some strategies up on here too for families that you can refer them
after they've actually come into the school for the preschool. That's what. So I don't have. That's why. What's that?
At a private preschool, you would have to get them referred.
Yeah, you'd have to get that referred through. Yeah.
Right, they would go to whatever county they reside in, is that's what we're
And then we have to use a good idea, just to say, you guys, say, you know, this is on track, this is on track, this is a little delayed, but.
And when we get involved, usually it's because there's a huge academic impact for the child. So again, it would go back to the academic impact, and then is it being caused by the fine motor stuff?
So if there's no academic impact, because this is our greatest little student, but she's the little one who's walking into doorways and tables and falling off her chair.
I would try some of the strategies that we've gone over here, really, because it does have to have an educational impact.
But they can always do the screening,
Sure.
and then
Oh,
if
yeah.
they went to child study, if they didn't think that it was impacted, they can always give strategies there.
And really, that's where you would do strategies. I talked to a mom the other day, and it was, she really was concerned about, it was like, it was 2.5 to 3, not at school yet. I just gave her some ideas of what I thought was going on, just to ease her, because I really think it was developmental. I just think that she didn't see that was where the child should be, or near where the child should be. So, and that would be kind of a more unique case also. I mean, if the child is is the girl. That's not an unusual for a girl to excel academically and motor. But the walking into things and stuff doesn't sound good.
Well, it's everything. Just kind of, like you said, we've
Body
been in
awareness.
the classroom and knowing where she is, but then in
Yeah.
PE, it's not being able to walk on her tiptoes or skid.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, that could be a vision thing. It
That's
could be
right.
it could be a hearing thing, vision thing. There's tons that could be, unfortunately.
Well, that's why I wonder that
Yeah.
evaluation, like you guys would.
Sometimes they're always having them refer them to their pediatrician. Have you expressed these concerns to the pediatrician? Because they usually can kind of get a feel for, is this within the range, or, they don't usually hesitate to refer to us if they have concerns. And they can do so many great quick checks with the eyes too now. Because I know we've had a couple kids pop up when we got the vision and it was significant.
And the child can do well academically. It could be a distance thing where they're, it doesn't have to be just that, if the child likes to read or look at books or whatever. We've had kids that's fine, but then they go to look up, or they go to look around and they have difficulty also. So again, it could be so many things. I think I would agree that the pediatrician's place to start.
And I think sometimes, I know, so as I said, my little guy got picked up for glasses at St. James. He knew letters, and I'm like, how can his vision be off? And it's like seriously off. And so sometimes I think what we think of as needing glasses isn't necessarily.
Even if something doesn't have an educational impact, there's 2 models for OTPD speech. There's the medical model, and then there is the educational model. If it's not having an educational impact, you can tell parents and they can pursue going and having an OT do an evaluation on their child, just like they would take it to the doctor, or the doctor may make that referral. But it could be through the medical model because it's not yet impacting the school. So that's your other avenue there.
Thank you.
All right, well, I thank you guys for having me today. I had fun with you guys.
This was awesome. Thank you. And just a quick reminder, fill out the evaluation. Oh yeah, you just put fine motor.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't fill it in. Usually I do. If there's pizza, please take it with you. That would be awesome.